With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of getting 2 W's on the road or catching the home run ball without spilling your drink. Double boom. Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
And now, Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
When I pop the trunk, head to death. Y'all pop the trunk, I pop the hood.
Now act stupid, I'll pop the trunk. Now give me a boom, boom, boom.
Let me start from the beginning at the top of the list. We lost a musician today. Prodigy from Mobb Deep passed away at 42 years old. Not just an influential member of the music community, but very influential to both Jalen Rose and David Jacoby. Jalen, what are some of your favorite Prodigy memories?
So many. Bars. And the thing I love about Mobb Deep, in particular Prodigy, when he had his solo album, the beats were always fly. The lyrics were always rugged and rough, forward-thinking, edgy, and they never compromised who they were as a group. He never compromised who he was as an artist. He will be missed, and as you hear the tunes in the background, we're going to dedicate this show to him by saying, we break bread, ribs, and $100 bills.
Let's get started. He is Jalen Rose.
What up, now?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
And we are Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio. What do?
We give the people what they want.
Jalen, if the people want craziness in the NBA, the people have it. The Los Angeles Lakers are in the process of trading away Timofey Mozgov and his terrible contract with young prospect D'Angelo Russell out to Brooklyn. They will get back not just a big like Brook Lopez, but also the 27th pick in the draft. Only on a day like today could that just be a footnote because the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jalen, have gone mad. In the cloak of the night, the Cleveland Cavaliers and their former GM, David Griffin, have parted ways after failing to come up with a contract extension for his employment. What? LeBron tweeted about it. Everyone's upset about it. He released a statement. When you found out, Jalen, what was your first response?
No true surprise. And I'm actually disappointed by that answer. If you look at the last 4 GMs that have been in tow for the Cleveland Cavaliers, none of which have gotten an extension, which means Dan Gilbert doesn't truly value that position, in particular for somebody that led the team to 3 straight NBA finals, that included a championship last season. And so when David Griffin and Dan Gilbert was unable to come to an agreement as it related to not only his contractual status, but the opportunity to elevate himself within the organization, it seemed inevitable. But as long as the summer continued to play out and other jobs opened, and I knew that he would be considered for those jobs, he didn't truly interview for those jobs. And then now you get to this point of the summer, a couple of days before the draft, and you make this move at this point in time, that's what makes it surprising.
It is surprising. He was up for some jobs, notably in Atlanta and Orlando, and Dan Gilbert basically blocked him from interviewing for those jobs. Another thing about David Griffin, again, 3 straight finals, just like you said, one of the lowest paid general managers in the league. When someone like Steph Curry overperforms their value, there is some sort of what you would call like a wink-wink deal, like, oh, we'll take care of you next time it comes around, which is what a lot of people expected would happen with David Griffin. But then amidst all these Jimmy Butler, Paul George, draft preparation, all of this craziness that's happening in the NBA right now, to have a team without a GM, to find themselves in this position, it's just curious. Like, did something happen behind the scenes that we don't know about, you think?
Well, it's one of those dichotomies that people talk about in professional sports. When you look at the roster, you have the best player in LeBron James, you have the highest payroll in the history of the NBA, a successful team, a billionaire owner, but yet you have one of the lowest paid general managers. And in professional sports, that itself on paper makes him expendable, and it's truly unfortunate in this dynamic.
LeBron James tweeted this: He's always very careful with his Twitter fingers, too. Like, there's always meanings upon meanings upon meanings. He tweeted, "If no one appreciated you, Griff, I did, and hopefully all of the people of Cleveland. Thanks for what you did for the team for 3 years. We got us one," meaning championship. He starts with, "If no one appreciated you, I did." Clearly, he's not talking about the people of Cleveland. He's not talking about media members. He's not talking about other players. He's talking about Daniel Gilbert. It seems like LeBron is taking a veiled shot at Dan Gilbert. Am I reading too much into this?
He is. And the shot that he's taking at Dan Gilbert, I will quote the late, great Prodigy. It's almost like life is a gamble. We scramble for money. He might crack a smile, but ain't a damn thing funny. He's not happy about this move. He was not included on this decision. It's one of those things that when you hear the rumblings of them trying to make a power move this offseason and bring in the current All-Star, when you hear people like myself talk about LeBron James possibly leaving at the end of this year, you would think you're trying to make moves to ingratiate yourself with him. So when that does not happen and he posts this tweet, it kind of makes people like, it kind of start to make people like me look a little intelligent because I talked about this for a while on this program.
You did, about the potential of LeBron leaving for Los Angeles. So now we have these things that have happened. Not only was David Griffin let go as the GM before his contract was up, but he was let go without the consultation of LeBron James. Then LeBron James semi-publicly, acknowledges that he was not consulted and he's upset about it. And then we have this. Now we're getting rumors and reports that, Savannah, LeBron James' wife, really likes the Los Angeles area. Does all of this just point to what you originally pointed out to, again, was the first to say on Wax that LeBron James is headed to Los Angeles, more specifically the Los Angeles Lakers? Is that a done deal to you?
This is one of those things where I had to get on the phone. Where's Tom Brokaw when I need him?
To everyone else, it's breaking news. To Jalen and Jacoby listeners, it's broken news.
So let me get this right. There are actually individuals that are discussing the fact that LeBron James' wife wants to now live in Los Angeles, which may affect him playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers and which may lead to him going west to play in purple and gold. Is that the report?
That is the report from Kevin Ding of Bleacher Report.
Okay, big shout, Kevin Ding. Now, for anybody that's truly been paying attention, when a couple buys a $20 million house in Brentwood, that usually means that they both want to live somewhere. So what's happening here is LeBron James is not only being strategic, but he's being calculating. Look at all of the things that have come out here recently. How the family members really didn't want him to ignore the letter, didn't want him to return to Cleveland. How the Cavs really aren't spending the level of dollar that he would like them to spend on their roster in order to get him what he needed to beat the Golden State Warriors. And what happened in the NBA Finals?
They lost to the Golden State Warriors.
I'm still looking for Deron Williams, Channing Frye, and a couple of those guys. So with that being said, LeBron James understands that I returned to Cleveland and I delivered the goods. I ignored the letter. I ignored who was going to be in the front office. I even ignored the fact that they had Andrew Wiggins as the number one pick so much that I left him out of the letter. He wanted to return home, and he did that. And so now, when he makes his next move, he feels like he fulfilled his deal with the people of Ohio.
I know how LeBron James' career is going to end. I figured it out today. Are you ready to hear it?
He's going to be the all-time leading scorer, and then Kevin Durant's going to pass him.
I'll ask you again. Are you ready to hear it?
Sure.
Okay. The year 2024, LeBron James is going to be on a team. Maybe the Lakers, maybe the Cleveland, maybe somewhere else. And what he is going to do, he'll be 39 that season. His team is going to draft LeBron James Jr. He will spend one season on the same team as his son, and then he will retire at the age of 40. Remember where you heard it first, 7 years ago on Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
I like where you're going. You look handsome today. I seen you on SportsCenter this week, on Sports Nation.
Whenever you're complimentary, you're about to go the other way. I know the rhythm of your voice. Just bring it.
I seen his son play ball, and if he keeps progressing the way he is, LeBron ain't going to be able to pick his team. He's going to go high in the draft.
Good point. We hope that's the case. Jalen, things change quickly in the NBA offseason. It seems like literally yesterday, all we were talking about was the potential of Paul George being traded to the Cavs. Ooh, what if the Cavs added Paul George? What would that look like? Well, now we have reports that it is Jimmy Butler who could be added to the Cavs. According to multiple sources in Cleveland, the Cavaliers players like LeBron James and Kyrie Irving have been reaching out to Butler directly and through back channels over the last 5 days to gauge his interest. But those players like what they heard back from the Bulls' three-time All-Star. That is according to the Chicago Sun-Times. So now we have LeBron and Kyrie getting involved. They don't have a general manager, so someone's got to get involved. Could you see Jimmy Butler, perhaps in a multi-team deal, being dealt to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Not only the Cleveland Cavaliers, pump the brakes. Can you hit the brakes for me?
Sure.
Listen up, each member of the media, all fans, players, and coaches. The team that's going to get Jimmy Butler and or Paul George isn't necessarily the one that lost in the NBA Finals because they have LeBron James. It doesn't work like that. The team that's going to acquire one of those players is the one that actually presents the best opportunity for a trade, because neither one of those guys have a no-trade clause in their contract. It does not work like that. All of a sudden, you're the Bulls or you're the Pacers, and you're just going to usher your all-star player to go run with LeBron James to see if he can win a championship in Cleveland for his final season. Okay? It doesn't work like that. Now, it may go down like that, but what people got to also remember, they're going to give up something. People just thinking about the Cavs that were in the NBA Finals thinking that they're going to add one of those players and now we're going to team up against Golden State. No. Not going to be able to do it. They're going to have to give up an all-star, i.e. like a Kevin Love in a 3-team deal. Watch out for the Phoenix Suns who pick at number 4, who could be a player in this.
Sounds like they are.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but it's not a foregone conclusion that it's going to be Cleveland. You got a lot of teams with assets. The Boston Celtics come to mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, we like to talk about Cleveland because they have the best player in the world, LeBron James, who's the most famous athlete in the country. So we naturally just want to say, oh, who's he going to add in the offseason? But you are only as loyal as your options. And if you are the general manager of the Bulls or the general management, the front office team at the Pacers, you will get back the most you possibly can for one of these stars. There's also another development. Our colleague and friend Ramona Shelburne is reporting that the Lakers are hearing all of this about Paul George going here and there, and they've started to contact the Pacers saying, you know what? Let's secure this guy now instead of waiting till he joins another team for a season and then try to lure him away. What do you think about the Lakers potentially giving up assets to secure George now instead of waiting to see if he comes in free agency?
I think the individuals that follow this program consistently understand once Magic Johnson took the job, Rob Pelinka was in tow, we literally went on wax and said, hey, look at my roster. You could take any of these guys that you want. Just give me Paul George. Because here's what you're trying to do when you're Los Angeles. You're not trying to lure free agents like Boogie Cousins, for example, to come run with Jordan Clarkson or even Julius Randle or Larry Nance Jr.
No.
And also, when you're the purple and gold, you're hosting the All-Star game in February of 2018.
Perhaps
and it would be awesome to have a player that's actually performing in that game. So you don't have time to wait. If you want to try to get Paul George in tow, you must move immediately. So it totally makes sense, all of the reports that you're hearing. But as media, we're going to glamorize only 3 teams. And it kind of frustrates me as a former player and as somebody that didn't grow up in a large market, that all we're going to talk about is where the best player is, LeBron James, and who can they get, the Boston Celtics and the Lakers because they have the most cachet and the most championships. There are going to be a few teams in the mix trying to make their teams better in this offseason.
You know who we're not talking about? The World Championship Warriors. You know what I mean? Who've got 4 All-Stars, this great team. It's almost boring how good they are. Literally, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant are going to be free agents. The 2 best players on the championship team are going to be free agents, but we all kind of know how that's going to play out because they have stability, they've got a core good group, and everyone else is just scrambling to match up to this team. There is a banana boat, brother, ramifications to all of this. Let's imagine that Jimmy Butler does get traded for some pieces, some young assets, multi-team deals, some picks go to them, and Kevin Love goes somewhere else. Let's just imagine that happens. You're Dwayne Wade, and you're about to sign a deal for you to play for the Bulls next year for $23 million or so. Or is there part of you that's like, wait a second, Jimmy's not going to be here? Wait a second, I don't know if I'm going to opt into this. What does Dwayne Wade do in this scenario?
Dwayne Wade, he walks into the office of the Chicago Bulls, and he signs immediately.
Really?
I'm not worried about what Jimmy Butler's doing. I have 20-plus million reasons why I'm going to be a member of the Bulls. Now, I don't know who else going to be here. And I know the novelty of you're getting older and you want to play for a chip. And you're going to do it for the love and you're going to take a pay cut. D-Wade, trust me. I know Gabrielle is right in his other ear. You go sign that contract. We ain't worried about nobody else. We'll deal with that at the end of this year. You go get them. You go get that bread.
It's always fun because me, as the man who has never signed $1 million contract and looking from the outside, being like, oh, he should opt out and join one of these other teams and take less money. It's just so refreshing to hear you be like, look, it doesn't matter. He's going to opt into this deal. It's the best deal he's going to get. It's one season in the NBA. He's got a couple more after that where he can go ring chase for $8 million a year.
Correct. And the stability comes from the bread and what he's already accomplished. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's a 3-time champion. He's going to have a statue in Miami. Once you leave Miami, you go after the bread, then you go after the ring. He has a chance to do both.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Jalen Rose, you know I'm a die-easy Clipper fan. You know I want nothing more to see this Clippers core just get completely shattered and spread all throughout the league and just start over again and build from scratch. So there's a part of me that really wants this to happen. You evaluate exactly how much of this is just a Jacoby dream or how much of this is potential. Some interesting news that seems small at first. Pau Gasol is going to decline his $16.2 million option for next season. Pau Gasol does not perform like a basketball player that deserves a $16.2 million salary. So one would think, like, well, does he think he can get more on the open market? Maybe not. He said that he is dedicated to staying with the Spurs and signing a longer-term deal to remain with the team. This looks to me like a team that is hamstrung a little bit by their salary cap issues, and they say to Pau Gasol, decline the $16 million. Let's take some of those millions off the cap for next year. We'll spread out your money throughout the next 3 or 4 years so we can go out and make a legitimate max offer to Chris Paul. They could offer Chris Paul about $152 million potentially, and the Clippers could offer $205 million. I would love to see Chris Paul join this San Antonio Spurs team for them to make a run at the Warriors. Is there any chance this is happening?
No. Chris Paul has been a terrific ambassador for the game. He's the most accomplished player in the game that not only hasn't been to a conference final, an NBA final, or clearly won a championship, he's an astute gentleman. I've seen this young man in high school put up big numbers to pay tribute to the death of his grandfather. He has amazing parents. I've seen him be a husband, a brother, a dad. He's in Los Angeles, has all the autonomy in the world, is on every other commercial that comes on television. You think he's about to walk away from $53 million at this point of his life?
He could walk away from $53 million.
You notice how your voice was a little scratchy when you started to spit that out? That don't even sound right.
Because, first of all, I'm concussed. Anything I do wrong on this show has to do with my concussion, okay? Secondly, Without the state taxes, the difference is not $53 million. It's less than that. That would probably trim $20 million off of that distance. We're looking at $33 million. With the dysfunction that has been the Clippers, we have heard time and time again how there's a fraction in the locker room between Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, them on opposing sides. Doc Rivers sort of like looking at Chris Paul as his general on the floor, while Blake and DeAndre are these important players to them but don't necessarily mesh with the culture that Doc and Chris are trying to create. He could be so frustrated by his experience with the Clippers that he decides to join the sanctuary, the basketball sanctuary that is the San Antonio Spurs. I could see it happening.
Yep. He gonna be in LA on his Prodigy. Okay? Rocking cables, drinking White Label, getting all that money. So his chain's gonna hang down and bang glass tables. He is not leaving $30 million, $50 million on the table to play basketball. I know fans and media, you guys romanticize about how, oh, Kevin Durant's leaving $3 million on the table. Oh, my goodness, he wants to sign Andre Iguodala. No, that's an investment. I'm putting it back into the kitty. Have you ever been in Vegas and you gambled and all of a sudden you run in with house money and you put the money that you came with in your pocket?
You tell yourself you're never going to take it out of your pocket.
I'm never taking this out of my pocket.
I'll never take this out of my pocket. I made my money back. As long as I keep what's in my pocket, I'll be good. You always go back into the pocket. Like 100% of the time you go back into the pocket.
But that's what makes this great. Guaranteed contracts, he doesn't have to. Going back into the contract means retaining a guy that's been a finals MVP if you KD, scored 20 points in the closeout game, help recruit you to Golden State. Oh, and by the way, the more championships you win at this point when you KD, that's an investment. You're going to get that money tenfold. For Chris Paul, it's a lot different. For Dwayne Wade, it's a lot different. You mentioned it. Hey, Paul, come here. We got to talk to you. You know that $16 million that you got on the books this year? You mind if we pay you that, but over 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
And Dwayne Wade will be looking at the Bulls like, y'all giving me all my money. We ain't even having that type of conversation. So it's all about the situation. And Chris Paul, you can't tell me that with all things equal, he would love to play with Kawhi. He would love to play for Pop. Of course, he would love to line up against the Golden State Warriors eye to eye and play against them and try to win against and try to beat them and put himself in contention. But to cost myself multi-millions of dollars, not gonna be able to do it. When he was doing Soul Cycle in LA with Jay-Z that day, he might as well sign this contract.
I'm a Cycle House guy. Now this is just, I honestly think that there's nothing new that could depress me and confuse me that Phil Jackson will do in regards to his moves at the New York Knicks franchise, but he always tops himself. Now, according to Woj, Phil Jackson is taking and making calls with the interest of trading Kristaps Porzingis. The one thing that he has done right while he has been in stewardship with the Knicks franchise. Trading Kristaps Porzingis. Trading someone on a rookie deal who has a lot of potential, who is perfectly fit for the future of the way basketball is being played in the NBA. And you know what? There's something that tells me that a little bit of this, a large percent, like a 20% chunk of this, is because he didn't come to the exit meeting so he could talk to Phil Jackson after the depressing season that was this New York Knicks basketball season. What is happening with the Knicks, and specifically, why would Phil ever do this?
You alluded to part of it, but it's three separate things happening.
Okay.
First and foremost, the team that drafts you, they have an opportunity, like with Paul George, like with Gordon Hayward, to give you a super maximum contract, which means if Porzingis is able to make an all-NBA team, that 5-year deal can now be worth an extra $70 million if he's able to accomplish that over the next couple of seasons. So basically what Phil is doing is the petty power play that really means nothing. That's number one. Number two, you remember the times when people will walk around and play silly in middle school and they'll tape a piece of paper to your back that says, "Kick me"?
Yes.
Phil Jackson is walking through NBA annals with one that says "Fire me," because that's really what he wants.
He really is. Like, I honestly feel like if other GMs see Phil Jackson's name in their phone, they're just like, "Oh, we got a hot one." Like, oh, I'm gonna pick up this call. Who knows what I can get out of this dude right now?
And the last thing, and here's the most important thing. Besides the fact, are they still trying to run a triangle? That's another subject for another day.
Malik Monk came and worked out with them, and Malik was like, yeah, they talked about the triangle the entire time and how it would fit into the triangle.
And, hey, Malik, I got some Ghostface Killer advice for you. Run!
Run.
So here's the thing. When you've been the highest paid president of operations the last few seasons, and you've gotten zero accomplished other than drafting Porzingis, he's finally decided to work. So the only way he could get people to call him back is to act like he wants to trade KP. He's not going to do it. Now the media's talking about it. The league's buzzing about it. He's not going to do that. Like you mentioned, that's the only positive thing he's done in that position.
That's not true. Do you know what he did to take the Knicks to knock them up a notch into playoff contention last year? He signed Sasha Vujacic to the team. Sasha Vujacic was in a New York Knicks uniform last year. That's how bad Phil Jackson is at this job.
He was on the team for one reason, so he could be the gopher in the locker room to try to encourage the triangle offense where everybody looking at him and feel like they're crazy.
Jalen Rose, if you call 985-80-JALEN, you can leave us a voicemail. It'd be weird if you did it, but guess what? A lot of other people did do it. We're going to play him on the show right now.
Jalen and Obi-Wan Jacoby. What up? It's J-Dot from St. Louis. You know, I got a really good one for you guys. Is it a boss move or a soft move to get on the Fandango app and order yourself a child ticket instead of an adult ticket when you want to see a movie just to save yourself a couple bucks? Let me know what you think.
Thank you for the call.
Ooh.
Appreciate the love.
Ooh.
It's always a boss move to save bread.
Here's what I don't want to have happen, though. Like, I actually went on Fandango and bought some tickets this weekend to see Cars 3 by Disney. Excellent film. Shout out to my favorite athlete in the game, Lightning McQueen. And they didn't really have too many checks and balances. They just kind of scan your thing and then you walk through. I had one child, one adult. I just wouldn't want to have the conversation where someone says, oh, sir, you bought a child ticket, and then you have to explain yourself. Oh, I made a mistake, and blah, blah, blah. Like, is that potential conversation worth the $5 difference to you?
If you're not famous, absolutely.
J-Dot is famous in STL. He runs St. Louis.
That only
His
matters.
name rings.
That only matters if you're a public figure and/or you're known at that theater or in that neighborhood or on that block. And then all of a sudden, everybody knows that you tried to do that. Other than that, please, I'm trying to save a couple of dollars. You know how many times I'm at hotels and I order from the kids menu?
I order from kids' menus all the time. Kids' meals are fantastic. Portion control. Sometimes you're not that hungry. You get a variety of different things. Here, I love kids' meals. I'm a huge supporter of kids' meals. And I'll just tell this waitstaff doesn't care if you order kids' meal. Let's listen to the next voicemail. Hopefully it's about kids' meals.
What up, Jalen and Jacoby? This is Marvin from Perth, Australia. Nah, I'm just kidding. This is Steven from Durham, North Carolina. I thought that impersonating Marvin might help me get on the show. If the Spurs don't go after CP3 or if it doesn't pan out this summer, who would be another guard that they should be looking at?
It's a great question. In terms of point guards in the free agent market, a point guard's a position that they're looking to improve upon, especially with Tony Parker. I don't know who else is out there that could have the impact that Chris Paul could. Kyle Lowry comes to mind. Do you think that the Spurs would make a run at Lowry?
Kyle Lowry is going to be an interesting prospect as free agency plays out. I don't anticipate Masai Ujiri and the Raptors are going to offer him a 5-year, maximum $205 million deal, which is going to put other teams in play, possibly the Philadelphia 76ers, who are going to draft Fultz to go with Ben Simmons and obviously Embiid, and the San Antonio Spurs, as you just mentioned. it's going to be interesting to see how his situation plays out.
Let me give you some names of point guards that'll be free agents, and let's see if any of these jump out to you. Steph Curry, he's not really a free agent. Chris Paul, we've discussed. Kyle Lowry, we discussed. Drew Holiday's out there. George Hill is out there. Jeff Teague is out there. Derrick Rose is out there. Rondo, Patty Mills, Sean Livingston. How do you see this playing out?
Well, if you're the Spurs, a guy that basically started in your farm system, George Hill's familiar with what you're trying to get accomplished. He had a better season than most people realize in Utah, not only scoring the ball but being efficient. I think he'll be a good fit. But all of those guys, especially with the escalating statistics and production of the point guard position, that price just went up for any of those guys because that value is going to be there whether you're a top flight player or not.
Thanks so much for the call, Steven. I really, really was upset when I thought you were from Marvin from Perth. I love Marvin from Perth like he's one of my children, but we've heard from him a lot recently, and I legitimately thought that he was back on the show again, but it was you. Well done. Let's listen to the next voicemail.
Guys, it's Linda in Phoenix with an extremely important question that we all need to ask you via text message. Is doofus plural? I think it's kind of like mice. It's not mices, it's mice. We're talking about the local media here acting like doofuses. And I think doofus means plural. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Great question. I have to disagree, though.
What?
Mice is the plural of mouse. I think she's trying to say deer. Like if you see 7 deer, you see 7 deer, not 7 deers. So it works as both singular and plural. If you see 1 deer, it's 1 deer, 7 deer, 7 deer. However, she said in her question, she went against her statement and called them doofuses. If you see 17 doofuses sitting somewhere, how would you describe them, Jalen?
Oh, that's definitely plural.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. Very important grammar questions. I always go to Jalen Rose whenever I need clarification on the English language. Let's listen to the next voicemail.
Hey, this is Erin from Oakland, California, calling from just down the street from Clay's alleged trap house. I've got a soft move or boss move for you, Jalen. I already know the answer, but I'm flying United to New York last week. I'm in the first seat in coach with first class directly in front of me and the forward coach toilet regrettably next to me. I have that dumb curtain which separates the cabins hitting my feet the whole flight. So some man with a first-class seat used the coach toilet next to me twice. Now, the first-class toilet was empty both times. This man crossed the sacred curtain barrier to downgrade to the coach toilet. Soft move or boss move? Shout out to Marvin from Perth. Shout out to the mailman. Shout out to Reg. Shout out.
She listens to the show.
Yep.
This
No
is
question.
brilliant. I know how we all know how you feel about going from the coach area to the first class area to use the bathroom. But are you saying that because you are so fancy at first class, you have the privilege to choose whatever bathroom you want?
Here's what I want to stress. The person that sits in first class, and usually I like the final seat by the window. That's where I like to sit. Because if I want to get up and go to the lavatory, I want to wake somebody else up, not the other way around.
Okay.
And also, when people come onto the plane, it's just more natural for people to say what up, though, to you or give you a shout when you're on the end versus when you're on the window acting like you're on the phone or listening to the music. So that's one. 2, if you're in first class, it should be illegal to use the coach bathroom.
Thank you. Yep. Especially if the first class bathroom is open as she specified. Yep. You should not go backwards.
And also, it's one more thing. Especially if you're going to do a number 2. Like, that's just disrespectful.
And another thing is the bathrooms, the accommodations are the same in the bathrooms in coach and first class. It's not like you're actually downgrading the experience by going to another bathroom. Appreciate those calls. Let's listen to one more.
What up, Doe? This is Jordan from Philly calling. Jacoby, I just got to say I owe you a huge debt. I switched my pizza to well done, and I can never, ever, ever go back. The single best piece of advice I've ever gotten. My pizza game has stepped up a huge amount. I owe you a lot, dude. Everyone listening, you got to switch your pizza to well done. Order it well done. You will not regret it. Oh, and P.S. Jalen, you've been my phone background for the past 4 years. Love the podcast, guys. Keep it up. What up, though?
Thank you for the love. Appreciate the call. And I'm truly humbled that you not only enjoy our program, but I'm able to grace your cell phone. Now, with that being said, I want to make sure on this program, there's so many people that have a multitude of talents. And because I've been a public figure for a long time, people get a chance to see and hear mine really often. David Jacoby, my brother, my partner in crime, he's more than just an amazing husband and a terrific dad, rides a bike every day and runs marathons and been at ESPN for 20 years and sold out and got his teeth whitened and wearing blazers and doing multiple television shows and a true Renaissance man to the point where he's actually getting consistent haircuts these days. The world must see for our program the versatility, the dexterity of David Jacoby in the kitchen, flipping, twirling, engaging in the act of entertaining us all with his ability to use a pizza on both fingers. Can you do it like this? How you doing?
Jalen, that's not how it works. Takes more than 2 fingers to make a pizza pie. That started off as extremely complimentary and lucid, and then it just went completely off the rails when you named getting haircuts as one of my talents. It's like, wait a second. Getting haircuts and riding a bike is one of my talents? Then my 4-year-old is really talented too. But I will say this to Jordan and Philly. Well done pizzas is 100% approval rate from every single person I've suggested it to. Every time you should always order a well-done pizza, whether it is just a slice or an entire pie. This next piece, this is for advanced pizza connoisseurs. This is something that I will ask on occasion if I feel the establishment will respect it. Extra sauce. Extra cheese is a trap.
No.
Don't ever fall for the extra cheese trap. Extra sauce. You're shaking your head. No, Jalen. Did you just explain to the world that I am a pizza professional? You are speaking from a point of ignorance. It's like when I say that Chris Paul should take $40 million less to go for the Spurs. You're like, that's not how it works. I'm telling you right now, this is my spot. I know how pizza works. A lot of the times what they will do, you're not back in the kitchen. They'll make cheese pizzas and then put your toppings on a pre-made cheese pizza and then put it in the oven. If you ask for extra sauce, that means they have to open a new piece of dough and redo the whole process. And that is how you get a made-to-order dish. I don't know, Jalen, is that something that you're interested in? A dish that's made specifically to your order? That's something that you like?
I'm taking notes. I'm going to be doing both from now on. Extra sauce, well done.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Before we turn our attention to breaking down the prospects in the draft landscape has changed slightly based on this new Lakers and Nets trade. If you're just tuning in, the Lakers are sending to Brooklyn Timofey Mozgov, going back to New York where he was with the Knicks, and, this is interesting, D'Angelo Russell. So both Mozgov and Russell, Jalen, are headed to Brooklyn. They will get back the purple and gold next year, Brook Lopez. And also, they've always been reported to wanting a second first-round pick. Well, they got it. They now have the 2nd and the 27th pick in the first round of the NBA draft. I know you have some interesting thoughts. What do you think about this group of prospects in this year's NBA draft?
A couple of things. High expectations, low achievement.
What do you mean?
And by no means do I want to disparage the young men that are going to get drafted, that have worked really hard, that will join the NBA fraternity of the approximate 4,000 people that have worn NBA uniforms. A lot of these guys have an opportunity to be all-stars. I don't think there'll be any Hall of Fame or all-time great players in this draft, or any guys that's going to be the best player on a championship team. So now when I start to look at the landscape of how the draft has transpired over the years, clearly from when players stayed in college 3 or 4 years, you got a chance to mature on and off the floor. Fans, colleges, and obviously NBA teams got a chance to get a more finished product, so you weren't necessarily judging players off potential. Then that era really took off of players coming out of high school, and then obviously GMs being forced to project if those guys were really going to be able to turn into Hall of Fame caliber players like we've seen a few of them do, in particular Kobe Bryant and Kevin Garnett, which I think the league should still allow. Then you transform into the one and done, to where you see a guy like Carmelo Anthony was the ultimate case, goes to college 1 year, wins the championship, a la Anthony Davis, goes into the NBA, still more an established product that you know what you're getting. Those players both went on to become perennial all-stars. Now, as I look at the landscape of the draft, it's become more of a crapshoot because of some of the unique things that, when I look closer to each player's resume, in particular those that are going into the lottery, that I truly hadn't seen. It was one thing for me to see Ben Simmons get drafted number 1 overall, a terrific talent, 6'10". Philly's going to use him at the point this year. I've already talked about on Wax how he and Joel Embiid are going to be a problem from day one. But he didn't make the NCAA tournament.
Nope.
And so we only saw a couple of players in the history of the league actually go number 1 that didn't play in the NCAA tournament. We have 2 such players in this year's draft. One that's going number 1 overall in Markelle Fultz, and another one that isn't getting talked about a lot that I really like as an offensive prospect that's going to be able to get buckets. He's strong. He's going to be splitting screens. He can make the J. Dennis Smith out of NC State. So usually you talk about not only rewarding skill and will and the intangibles, but also another thing that always went into play was rewarding winning.
Yep.
So it's hard to gauge a player not only by those attributes I just named, but if he can be a winning player in a team game, I know, that didn't have the level of success where you would hope that he could lift them at least to play in the NCAA tournament.
So that's what you mean by high expectations, low achievements, is you've got 2 players here that, while expected to do great things in the NBA level, didn't get their teams into the tournament on the college level. Obviously, it's a team game, but a number 1 pick, regardless of the roster, should be able to take their team to the tournament. In the last 2 years, both number 1 picks will have not done so. Who else has high expectations but has low achievements thus far in their career?
Harry Giles.
Yep.
He has a litany of injuries, and obviously when you play a contact sport like basketball, running and jumping and cutting, sometimes your body just breaks down on you.
But let me give you the list of those. He's got a torn left ACL, MCL, meniscus in 2013, torn right ACL in 2015, left knee procedure in 2016. That's 3 instances of knee damage and procedures.
The first player, Ike Enibogu. Here's a guy that's possibly going to be a lottery pick, David Jacoby. You know how many points he averaged in college?
It's shocking. Just say it.
He averaged 4 points in 13 minutes of play.
2 buckets and only played 13 minutes at the college level and is now going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft. How does this happen? Just explain to me if I had to explain this to an alien, I would be like, I don't even get it. When you look at a draft class, you got to remember, these players have been performing against one another for years. So usually, if you're one of the top players in 9th and 10th grade, you can be one of the top players in 11th or 12th if your game continues to grow. So now you play 1 year in college, the talent gap hasn't changed much. Look at a player like Dennis Smith. Mm-hmm. The only reason why he's not being talked about as going in the top 2 or 3 is because he got injured. And so the other players as freshmen, they got off to better starts and got more acclaim, obviously. And then obviously, in particular, the case of Lonzo Ball was not only a really good performer, but played on a better team. So that's how it happens. And the other one, what about Collins for Gonzaga? He never started a game
on varsity in high school or in college as a freshman.
I was shocked when Fran Fraschilla told us he was a backup in high school. We all know he was a backup in college for good reason. Karnowski was good. But then he's a backup in high school? In high school basketball, this dude didn't even start, and now he's going to walk across the stage and shake Adam Silver's hand. And some franchise fan base is going to be like, that's my guy for the future.
And again, does that mean any of these players aren't going to live up to expectations? I don't know.
No.
But what it does mean is you're clearly drafting, in a lot of cases, what can be considered an incomplete project.
Yes.
It shall remain to be seen if these players are able to produce at a high level.
And when you talk about Harry Giles, you've got multiple knee procedures on both knees, and this is a guy that only scored over 10 points twice in his college career. Again, he was injured a lot, but only scored 10 points twice in his college career and is now considered a lottery pick. How does this happen? I don't understand it.
What a time to be alive.
So we're looking at this draft, Jalen Rose. There's a couple players I want to ask you about. There are reports that both the Bulls and Knicks are interested in Josh Jackson. Josh Jackson's stock has been rising of late. The Bulls and the Knicks aren't in a position to draft him. He'll be gone long before then. Why is everybody so high on Josh Jackson?
Pogo stick. He's going to get stronger. His ball handling and shooting will improve. He has a level of toughness and tenacity you want from a player that's going to defend multiple positions, and on a nightly basis, if he continues to develop, is going to be asked to guard LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Kawhi Leonard when they come to town. So when you have that level of player that could possibly perform on both ends of the floor, that now rises his stock. And so it's going to be interesting to see if those things happen in his game and where he ends up.
Do you know what really rose his stock for me, Jalen Rose? When he tweeted and deleted this. Here's a tweet that he immediately thought better of and then deleted. Quote, "Anybody with the smallest bit of talent can look good and lose. It's not that hard." What do you think he was, what do you think he was referring to, Mr. Rose, when he tweeted that, I don't know, right around the draft?
He was throwing shots at Markelle Fultz, the number 1 overall pick.
Sure was.
Oh, and by the way, I don't want to discourage players from going to LSU or from Washington. As a fan of the collegiate game, I appreciate seeing Coach Cal, Coach K, Sean Miller, all of these great coaches continue to get all of the elite level prospects. Kansas does it with Bill Self. North Carolina's doing it with Roy Williams. But as I look down at the McDonald's All-Americans over the last few years, I'm starting to notice something. They all going to those same schools.
Yep.
And so when a guy goes to Washington and they don't make the tournament, or LSU and the same happens, I don't want those guys to be discouraged from the fact that an All-American can't go to a school and put them in position to not only make the tournament, but still be successful in their individual goals. What has now happened is some guys get to skate too.
Yeah.
And not throwing any shots, but I look at a player like Dakari Johnson of Kentucky. Had he not been there, I think he would have stayed another year. Mm-hmm. Same with the Harrison twins. But when the assembly line is coming behind you and the expectation is you got to be one and done, it's like, I got to bounce. You're on the bus. This is my exit. I'm not at school yet, but you might as well get off and walk. And so it's going to be interesting to see where Josh Jackson ends up, because as I've mentioned, I think he has as much potential as any player in the draft.
I think the Celtics will be looking hard at him at number 3. But who knows with the Celtics? They have so many picks that could go any different direction between now and draft day. I do love that he was taking shots on Twitter, but there's De'Aaron Fox, who we all watched in the tournament, scored 39 on Lonzo Ball, had a great tournament, had a great year, but there's one glaring hole in his game, especially when it pertains to the NBA level. What's that, Mr. Rose?
Can't shoot it with distance. Got to work on his three-point shot.
Shot 24.6% from 3.
Being a short player that's thin, he can draw inspiration, however, from another Kentucky point guard, Tyler Ulis, who came in, got minutes for Phoenix, played well on the defensive end, showed that he belonged in the league, because that's what the game has now become, pace and space. So if you have a player that can push the ball, and he's a mercurial athlete, he's going to be able to change ends of the floor with the best of them. He's going to be able to finish over the top, not necessarily over the defense, but he has that level of ability. He can shoot runners and or floaters, but he's going to have to unlock the rest of his game, and that's going to be if and when he's able to make three-point shots and use his right hand more often.
You know, I'm a die-easy Knick fan, and I'm just so depressed every time a piece of news comes across. And this is the latest depressing news from the Knicks, is that they had a meeting with Lauri Markkanen. Now, Lauri Markkanen, if you're not familiar, is basically Kristaps Porzingis, maybe. Like, his upside is that he turns into Kristaps Porzingis. And now the Knicks are considering drafting somebody whose best case scenario is somebody who is already on the team. Why would they do this?
This is another thing that going into the draft is baffling for me, is that the Knicks are determined to run the triangle.
I know.
If you're a prospect, if you're Malik Monk, if you're marketing, you want to get to the league, but just tell your family, you know what? If I don't go to them and we go a couple of picks behind, it's going to be okay.
It's fine. It's fine. Maybe we can dodge that bullet. I'll be fine.
Because where you get drafted means everything. And if they want to force run in the triangle before they even know who's going to be on the team, they have a guy that's going to the Hall of Fame, a 20-plus point scorer with a no-trade clause that they're probably going to end up cutting because he's not going to agree to any trades. You have Kristaps Porzingis, as you mentioned, that showed a lot of promise as a 7-footer, that they're dangling his name in the news about possibly trading him. Now you're talking about drafting me and trading him? I don't want to be there.
No. Here's one that jumped out at me when I was looking over stats and doing my draft prep, and I was like, Jalen's not going to like this at all. Luke Kennard, right? Luke Kennard, we all know who that is. Duke, hits shots, pure shooter. There's always a place in the league for a pure shooter. Like, there is always a place in the NBA for someone who can knock down shots, as long as they can do the other things just okay. But Jalen Rose, this guy is 6 feet 6 inches tall, and he has a 6 foot 5-inch wingspan. Jalen Rose hates NBA players with short arms. Luke Kennard is a short-armed NBA player. Drafters, beware.
How about this? And again, I don't claim to be the smartest person walking. If you've ever heard me speak, you notice that I'm not as soon as I open my mouth. I didn't realize that a player could be taller than his wingspan.
I didn't even know that was possible. I always assumed that arms were longer than heights. Again, we usually only consider these things when it comes to athlete evaluation. But I think that there are people out there whose arm wingspan is the same, if not shorter, than their heights.
But you made the distinction, though. Normally, they're not in the NBA draft, possibly going in the lottery.
Yeah, those people are accountants. Yeah, that's it. They're lawyers and doctors and accountants and teachers. They are not draft lottery people. And it is a thing that you pointed out about Julius Randle that I have looked at since then. It's hard, especially when you're only 6'6". When your wingspan is only 6'5", you're not helping yourself out. However, homeboy shoots 44% from three. So,
that helps.
That helps. You shoot 44% from three. Anyone who's seen him play, he is a scorer. He shoots and he scores. Like that is what he was put on this planet to do, and God bless him. Also shot almost 86% from the free throw, which I like. I could see him being a pick and roll kind of a guy. Do they go under and he hits the shot? That could happen. Another one I want to talk to you about is a Wolverine. DJ Wilson. Again, now he's 6'11". His wingspan, 7'3", with a lot of guard skills. What do you love about DJ Wilson?
I like his versatility. You talked about his height and his wingspan, his ability to put the ball on the floor, play perimeter-oriented, be a team-first kind of guy. He has multiple skills. Can shoot well enough, dribble well enough, pass well enough, finish in a half court and in transition. I think he has an opportunity to be a sleeper in the draft.
I don't think he'll go that high, but I think that he could provide value for where he gets drafted. He also shot 37% from three. Again, not great, but 37% from three when he took a lot of attempts at 6'11", that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Jalen Rose. Conor McGregor is training in his gym with boxing gloves on and getting ready to, quote-unquote, fight Floyd Mayweather. Behind him as he's training is a gigantic, bigger-than-life mural of him punching Floyd Mayweather in the face with a sharp left jab. Is that mural the only time that his left hand will touch Floyd Mayweather's face in the next 3 months?
You've heard our brother Max Kellerman talk about that on First Take. Bob Arum, the legend, came on this very program, said the exact same thing. I'm not going to go that far, but the champ is going to put on a boxing exhibition. Again, the circus is coming to town, guys. Get your tickets. It's going to be great theater. It's going to be amazing tweets. There are going to be awesome press conferences. It's going to be a lot of barring. It's going to be a lot of jabbing back and forth in conversations. It's going to be a lot of nose to nose. It's going to be really contentious. Whoever sings the national anthem, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a wonderful rendition. Ice Cube is going to find a way to get a big check because he got the date of the 26th at T-Mobile.
I love that Ice Cube's involved in this. Like, all of a sudden, the ball is in Ice Cube's court now. Like, he's just sitting there like, wait. Y'all need the place that I have rented out? What's the number? And then he's going to say no to the first 4 proposals because he knows this is a $600 million event. And the Big 3 tournament, I'm excited about the Big 3. That's a $6,000 event. You know. Oh, dude, I think Ice Cube will make more money not having the Big 3 in Vegas than having the Big 3 for the entire rest of the tour. Good for them. Jay-Z is coming out with an album.
444.
One of my favorite rappers on the planet. Easily in my top 5, if not pushing Redman out of the top spot. I will not sign up to Tidal, no matter how many twins he has or how many albums he puts out. I will not sign up to Tidal. But the latest news on Jay-Z is he has once again changed his name. It used to be capital J-A-Y space capital Z. Now, just to make it more confusing, it is all caps J-A-Y hyphen Z.
I thought that's what it always was without the capitals.
It's confusing.
People that have longevity in entertainment, sports, or as public figures, what lends you to be able to achieve that besides your immense talent and your ability to consistently be able to perform at an elite level, you have to be able to reinvent yourself. That's all this is. Think about this. Since you got introduced to Sean Combs, when you get an opportunity, can you tell me all of the names that he's gone by?
Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, Diddy. P. Diddy.
Basically one every 5 years. And you look down at the Forbes list, number 1. Same for Jay-Z. I get it, guys. I'm following your lead.
One of my favorites with Sean Combs is when he changed his name from Puffy because he was in that trial with J-Lo. And they're like, so why are you called Puffy? He's like, oh, it's P. Diddy now. Now it's P. Diddy, guys. Sorry about that. We have some statue news. We've always complained that the one statue outside the Barclays Center is not of Christopher Wallace, the notorious B.I.G. It is of Captain America. Someone has tweeted us an update. Again, I have no idea if this is actual fact, but that will not stop us from reporting it on this nationwide show because that's the type of show that we have. The Captain America statue has been removed from outside of the Barclays Center. It is now in a shopping center in like Sunset Park or something, some other part of Brooklyn. It is indoors at a shopping center. As the senior statue analyst, not just at ESPN, but in the world, how do you feel about this relocation of the trash Captain America statue?
I feel like this program moves mountains.
It does.
Nobody was thinking about that statue until we talked about it. And how about this? Thursday night, clean it in the Board of Health. Players getting drafted. Excited about the moment. I'll be in the Barclays Center. And I'm going to also lobby for the notorious B.I.G. to have a statue in front of the building. And I will give a salute to anybody that sent an email that had any sweat equity in the fact that you're going to remove Captain America from the outdoors.
Move him inside.
And move him inside.
That's an
it's
indoor
not a legit statue anymore.
That's an indoor statue.
Yeah.
Chris Wallace, that's an outdoor statue. We need a Biggie statue outside Barclays. We definitely need a Biggie statue outside Barclays.
Especially since he has a banner hanging.
I know. Jalen Rose, I think a lot gets lost in the fact that LeBron James might go to the Lakers and that Paul George might move and Jimmy Butler might move and that David Griffin got fired. But people are overlooking this announcement from Kevin Pritchard of the Pacers. Lance Stephenson's going to play point guard. Is this another step in the development of Lance Stephenson, or is this blatant outright tanking by the Pacers?
It all depends on what happens with Paul George. And so you can say that based on the composition of your roster right now. But if they're able to make a three-way deal and all of a sudden they end up with Eric Bledsoe, he won't be playing point.
That's a good point.
So that's kind of how this works. He's just looking at his roster right now, and if they got to run 5-on-5, it's like, Lance, you handle.
Now, I'm going to point something out that you only get from Jalen and Jacoby. When you're talking about all these three-team deals in Phoenix and this and that, who is Eric Bledsoe's agent?
Rich Paul. I live out there, so don't go there.
And who else is in Rich Paul's stable?
LeBron James.
Oh, that's right. And then all of a sudden, Eric Bledsoe's name gets brought up in all of these deals. Huh. That's interesting. I wonder if other programs are discussing that. Jalen, there are reports that Andre Iguodala would be fielding offers from other teams. The Jazz, the Clippers, the Bulls, the Timberwolves, the Hawks are all reportedly interested. But more interesting than that was we received another tweet. It was of Andre Iguodala's custom license plate. First of all, huge shout out to Andre Iguodala, who was watching our mock draft special, giving us compliments on Snapchat. He's got a custom license plate that's Andre I-9. I feel like custom license plates are a soft move, especially if they identify who you are. Another soft move. However, if you support the Jalen and Jacoby project, it's got to be a boss move.
And from the beginning, big shout, Iggy. I got love for him. I appreciate how, like we were talking about artists, he reinvented himself. Remember, he went to Philly. They were calling him the next AI.
Yep.
Doug Collins comes. He becomes an all-star. They make the playoffs. He gets a deal in Denver. All of a sudden, they feel like he's not living up to expectation. He goes to Golden State, a starter for basically a decade straight.
Yep.
The coaching staff decides it's better for the team if he comes off the bench. You know what he does during the NBA Finals? Just that. You know what ends up happening during that Finals? MVP. And so for him to get his second championship and play the way he played in Game 5, I've tried to tell you the entire time, David Jacoby, having a custom license plate, even though I don't have one, is a boss move.
Here's the thing. I think a custom license plate is a soft move. However, supporting Jalen and Jacoby publicly trumps all of that. Shout to you, Andre Iguodala. Salute. Jalen Rose, we're going to open up our 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed and take a look at our subreddit. Make sure you go on to our subreddit. It is reddit.com/r/Jalen and Jacoby. I'm there every single day seeing what people are talking about. People are sending us questions. We'll start with a question from Reddit. This is from Veteran Minimum. He asks, Jalen, do you think Phil Jackson's master plan is to get fired so he can collect some checks at the crib instead of going to the office? One thing, first, he never goes to the office. Second, do you think his master plan is to get fired? If so, he's doing a great job.
Should I approach this like most local radio stations that play the same 5 records a lot of times when they're popular for each person's set? Because I remember actually already answering this question.
This is a different question. It comes from a fan on Reddit. That is, do you think he is trying to get fired?
You remember my whole example about kick me on the back?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely I think he is. That's the only way he's going to be able to collect his dough. Because the way he's actually doing his job doesn't seem like somebody that's trying to keep it.
Great point. Here's a question from Matt on Twitter. Diets with a cheat day, soft move or boss move?
Be healthy first and foremost. What ends up happening is, and it's almost like being in this industry, like being a public figure. Sometimes you want to be on TV all of the time. It becomes a drug. It becomes who you are. And it shouldn't be that way. The same thing for your appearance. We all want to look good. We all want to be our best. We all have flaws, however. Just be the best version of yourself.
Another great question we have from Twitter, and I apologize because I can't see who sent this in, but it is brilliant, whoever you are.
Shout out.
I really want a serious answer to this because it is sort of nebulous. And it could be a non-answer because some things are hard to define. Jalen, what are an NBA general manager's duties?
An NBA general manager's duty are literally to construct, navigate, and put a roster on the floor that, number one, to me, has an identity. The thing that has gotten lost in the NBA, and I'm doing this off the top of the dome, so I don't want to forget a couple of teams. Forget win-loss records. And I'm only talking about last year. When I was watching NBA basketball, to me, there were a handful of teams that actually had identities. That when I had a remote control in my hand or I was in the arena, I knew what they wanted to get accomplished. And lastly, construct a team that masks your best player's weaknesses. That is always the key. Your best player is going to have strengths and weaknesses. So if you have Michael Jordan, you need Steve Kerr. You need John Paxson. You need B.J. Armstrong. It's the exact same thing. Always build a team that's going to mask your best player's weaknesses. And lastly, one that's going to be able to compete not only in practice but in games. What ends up happening so many times is young players in particular, they don't play in practice with the same intensity that you're required to play with in the game. And then all of a sudden the clock comes on and people start sitting in the stands and you're trying to build a team through the draft and people running past your squad. So that's another thing. And lastly, and I'm really big on this, a team that's going to give back to the community. Be a team that your fans is going to be proud of.
Great job answering that question, Mr. Rose.
And keep the boss happy.
That's everybody's job. That's everybody's duty at everywhere they work. Keep the boss happy.
Hey, but you know what? Look at David Griffin. He did all of that.
Alan has this question. Is the player in the new NBA G League logo dunking with his right hand or his left hand? They say Alan said this is an office debate. I don't know where he works because the player is definitely dunking with his right hand. Definitely his right hand. But my question for you, Jalen, is this, I assume that this is the case, but I'm also very petty. Would you be much prouder to say that you played in the D League or the G League?
The G League, no question.
The G League, no doubt. Like, if I was just at a dinner party and someone's like, oh, where do you play professional basketball? I would be so much happier to say the G League than the D League. It just sounds so much more G.
Ain't nothing but a G thing, baby.
There's such a better connotation to the word G than the word D. I
got a question for you. I'm the statue expert. You're the logo one. To the point where you felt like the NBA should change their logo. Whoever's depiction that is on the G League logo, should that player be proud?
Well, it's kind of a generic dunk. I don't appreciate it. It doesn't look like a very thunderous dunk. It looks kind of like your dunk from pickup the other day, like you're just kind of laying it in, but it does count as a dunk. Like, I think, and this is my thing, that every decade, at the turn of the decade, the NBA should come out with a new logo representing that decade. I know you're against this, but you know what? You're against most of my really brilliant ideas. This is a good idea. It should be, do you remember in the 90s when so-and-so was the logo? In the 80s when so-and-so was the logo? Jerry West dribbling uncomfortably in front of him. It's just bad. It's bad form. He's crossing his legs over. He looks off balance. Like, it just doesn't look like a good move. Is he getting his shoulder past somebody with that dribble? Like, is that really happening, Jerry West? Like, it should be Kareem Skyhook one year, LeBron's dunk one year, Magic no-look pass one year. It should be a big event, a big unveiling. It could be a television event tied to the All-Star game. Whatever you got to do, you should change the logo every 10 years if you are the NBA. When I'm finally voted in as the first commissioner that completely doesn't know what they're doing in the NBA, I look forward to instituting that with my 2 assistant commissioners, the Podfather and Jalen Rose. Next is from Matt. He wants to know, if you had to bet on one draft prospect to finish their career as a Hall of Famer, who would it be? Great question from Matt. It's hard.
I wouldn't bet.
Hall of Fame is a Hall of Fame is not just All-Star. It's not super. It's like going to the Hall of Fame. You have to. Matt asked the question, Jalen. I'll answer it. If I'm looking at these players and I'm betting that one is going to be a Hall of Famer, I mean,
I just got finished talking about this, and I'm going to talk about it on draft night. I'm not sure if there's ever been a draft that didn't have a Hall of Famer. This might be the one.
Well, there have been drafts that don't have a Hall of Famer, but not this clearly before you started. How about this? Let's just tone it down a little bit, because I know people get real sensitive about the Hall of Fame. And when I say people, I mean producer Reggie. Who will be the first to don an All-Star uniform from this draft?
The first to don an All-Star uniform is the player.
Look, get drafted to probably a bad team so they can put up numbers.
Or get drafted to a good team and have moderate production that gets appreciated like the Celtics. So if you're a Josh Jackson, for example, you come to the Celtics and you average 15 points, and they're a number 1 or number 2 seed, you got a chance to be an All-Star next year or in the next couple of years. So it really has a lot to do with where you go.
I'm going to say Jason Tatum. I'm not particularly high on Jason Tatum. I feel like he is a little too small and soft for bigs and a little too slow for guards. But when I have watched him at Duke, it's like, oh, that's an NBA player. And if you get drafted by, like, say, the Suns, you can see him putting up some numbers and potentially being an all-star. But this draft, while deep with good players, it does feel a little bit like it's deep with pretty good players, but no standout superstars. Don't forget, you can watch Jalen Rose in a fresh suit with a fresh hairline on ESPN's draft coverage on Thursday night. Tomorrow, we'll have a Jalen replacement as he prepares for the draft. We'll be back on Friday. Thanks so much for tuning into the Jalen Jacoby podcast. We appreciate our podcast everyday listeners, and that means you. Don't forget to leave us reviews and ratings on iTunes.
I break bread, ribs, $100 bills.
R.I.P. Prodigy.